So right now here we have Miss Amanda Nelson for the speech about customer first, how to build an amazing customer centric approach to content marketing. So does your company look at content through customers' eyes? So if not, we have Miss Amanda Nelson, Director Community Marketing at Salesforce, to teach us on how to build an amazing customer-centric approach to content marketing. She is Director Community Marketing at Salesforce App Exchange. She has a background and focus in community, social, and content marketing in B2B technology. She is a conference speaker, published author, and a social media professor. Prior to content and social marketing, she has worked in account management for interactive and full service advertising agents. So, hi, Miss Amanda Nelson. You can start your resume your presentation with the participants over here.
Hi, everybody. So, I was talking about the customer marketing landscape, and the customer marketing landscape tends to be really dry. It tends to be a lot of data sheets and boring case studies with text, and even cross-selling and more cross-selling, and sending ads to your customers. And that's really not the greatest experience. So customer marketing matters for a number of reasons, not just because we want to make sure that customers get that warm feeling that they got as a lead, but also because of the 80-20 rule, which says that 80% you're 80% more likely to close. You're more likely to close 80% of those existing customers than the 20% that come in. So really, if 80% of your existing customers are more likely to buy more versus the 20% of the leads, why are you targeting the leads so much? Also, another number that I found really interesting is that customers are 4 to 10 times more likely to buy more than potential customers. So if you look at the fact that you have this great opportunity to reach your existing customers, why would you stop and focus solely on those leads? So that these reasons are major, and why we need to be focusing our content marketing efforts on our customers. So there's a crack. There's this divide that's happening, and we need to be thinking about how we can bridge that gap. And the bridge is long. It's not quick. This is actually the 7-mile bridge in Florida, and it connects different islands together in the Florida Keys. It's a super long bridge. I go over it every year on vacation. And the thought is, how do you bring one type of mindset and one type of audience to another? How do you bring everybody together? So I'm going to show you some ways that my team does this at Salesforce, give you some examples and some inspiration. One way we do this is with customer spotlights. Now, I showed previously those boring text-heavy case studies. So we all have case studies, we all have customer stories, we all have customers. So if you dig into those stories and bring out the visual aspect of it, it can be a lot more engaging. For example, pull out 3 key ROI statements, bring a quote in, put a picture of the customer there, and not the customer as a brand like a logo, but actually a picture of the person. It adds more personality, a human element, and it really brings that peer-to-peer opportunity to life. And when people are making those buying decisions, especially in B2B tech, they rely on other peers, which is a big reason why you want those customer stories and that peer-to-peer experience. Another example is our webinar series called App Stack, which you can check out at allinthestack.com. What we did here was we learned from customers that they like sharing about the different types of apps they have in their tech stack. So why not make a webinar about that? Why not bring the customers in and have them actually talk to each other about the different apps and technologies they're using in the B2B space? This webinar series, we have a customer as the host. It's not about Salesforce. It's really about customers working with other customers. So think about the stories and the conversations that your customers are already having and turn that into content with webinars, ebooks. Another example is our Dreamforce 2017 recap. We do this every year. Dreamforce is our big conference in San Francisco. This year it's happening at the end of September. And what we'd like to do is have our assets ungated. So no forms, no leads. It's just a nice ungated piece of content that recaps the amazing experience that our customers have had at Dreamforce. And this asset is HTML5. It's rich. It's very interactive with images from the experience, apps that were talked about, customers, partners, all sorts of things in there. So we do this every year as a great recap asset. And the last thing, and perhaps the thing that I'm most known for at Salesforce, are the demo jams. And we actually do demo jams all around the world at all of our events and our customer-led events. And these events have demo jams because it's an opportunity to bring customers and partners together. Partners are building technology on Salesforce, and customers want to use that technology, but they may not know it exists or have the time to do the research. So these demo jams are a great way to do that. It's a game show, and we have the partners demo their app in 3 minutes. And at the end of the demo, the audience votes on their favorite one. So it's a lot of fun, it's fast-paced, and we do it as a webinar, and now we do it at live events. So that's another customer-centric content marketing approach. The last thing that I'll mention is swag, giveaways, giving your customers fun branded items just because you care about them, because you want to show them that you appreciate them. So every year we do a calendar, and customers sign up to get this calendar. It's free, and we actually include photos and other things from customers in the calendar. And we do this because we want customers to feel a part of the experience and we care about them, but also because we want to give them something to enjoy for the whole year. So who's ready to do this with me? All right, now I'm going to talk about how we actually do it. The most important thing is to plan, build, and execute. When you're planning, you want to start with a vision statement. What is that really important message that you live by? When you wake up every morning and you brush your teeth and you're thinking about your day, your vision statement should come to mind. And for us, it's all about exciting and entertaining our customers, who we call trailblazers, with head turning at marketing and content. And that's going to drive success with apps. It's going to drive success with apps for the customers installing them, and it's going to drive success with apps for the partners building them and spending their time and their energy and their money actually creating the technology. So the other aspect of planning is to think about the stages of content and making sure that content, great content, not the blah stuff, is all the way through the process. Now, these are the chevrons that we talk about, but you don't necessarily have these. Yours might be different, but there's awareness, which is really the lead gen aspect, making them aware of your company. The assessment, okay, they're aware of your company, but are they interested? The alignment, okay, now they've signed the deal, they're getting into the flow, they are using your product. Activation, how can they actually use it and do more with it and accelerate, taking it to the next level, cross-selling, getting them to buy more product. So there's all these different stages. Now, the content marketing, beautiful stuff, tends to happen in the beginning when they are a lead or they are just coming in and we're excited to have them. But oftentimes, the content marketing meh happens when it's a customer and they're not getting cross-sold to, or they're not really doing much with your product yet. And when you think about acceleration, well, sometimes that doesn't even happen. Sometimes we don't even think about using content to take them to the next level. So what we need to do is make sure that we have this content marketing greatness across the entire experience and be always thinking about content. Now, how do we do that? As I mentioned, we all have existing content. It could be case studies, it could be blog posts, it could be some events, but you can take that existing content and do a lot with it. For example, let's say you currently have a case study and you're using it to reach your existing customers or maybe even your prospects, but it's very tactical. It's about how they used your product or what the results were. You can make that thought leadership. You can pull the quotes out from that case study and elevate it and try to inspire and make it more engaging and use that thought leadership to take it to the next level. And that's what I like to call the content engine. The content engine is your place where all your content is running all together, and they're reusing and recycling each other's stuff to keep it really interesting and engaging. Now let's look at new content. Let's say you just launched a new ebook. So this ebook is thought leadership. It's all about reaching your prospects, but you can turn that piece into a customer-focused piece just by including existing customers in there and just by digging down a little bit deeper. Maybe there's a deep dive in there on the product, or maybe there's just some more information that's a little meatier or less top of funnel for those folks. Again, content engine. Here's what the content engine could look like. You take that customer story in the middle and you create all this stuff around it. Community posts, have them speak at a session at your event, blog posts, ebooks, podcasts. One way you can make a podcast is when you interview them, use that audio for the interview for the podcast. Take that audio, transcribe it, make it a blog post. So you can do all these different things. You can also dig it down to the bottom of the funnel with first call decks and more detailed information. If they become a new customer, that's a press release. There's all these different things you can be doing. And honestly, this doesn't all fall on you or your team as marketers. This is something that you work with all the different departments in your organization, and you get everybody around. And they're going to want to be around this because it benefits them too. It benefits PR because they just have some great press releases, or they have customers that they can use to pitch for media briefings. It helps your sales team because they have an updated first call deck. So getting everybody aligned in part of the content engine is going to help everybody internally. Now, I love our customers at Salesforce. I have so much fun with them. I work with them every day, and I think that that's so important. I've been in roles at other organizations where I haven't had the opportunity to get in front of customers, and I think that that's such a shame as marketers to not actually know them by name or have a chance to talk to them or have to go through the salesperson or something like that. Because when you get to know your customers, you really understand what they're about and what their pain points are, and you can really do stronger marketing. You can bounce ideas off of them. You can show them what you're thinking and see how they respond to your creative or your blog post. They even give ideas. You know, when I think of customers, I think of them in all different shapes and sizes, and they, you know, you've got the low-hanging fruit, or the customers that are always talking to you and always willing to engage. They're on Twitter, they're talking about your product, they're talking about your brand, they love your brand, they're always willing to speak on a webinar or at an event. But what about that little guy in the corner? What about that new customer, or that customer that's a little shy, or a customer that's really well versed in your product but just has never been in the limelight before? You have to do your research. You need to become a Sherlock Holmes or an investigator and come up with ways to find those customers, because you don't want to always talk to the same ones. You want that well-rounded experience. Also, by talking to lots of different customers, you're going to learn lots of things about your product, about what marketing works. So do that digging. So how do you do that digging? So I also manage social for App Exchange. So constantly on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, using our social media monitoring tools to see what's going on and engage and respond. So when you're looking at who's talking about you, I kind of gave here 3 different examples. On the left here, this Jessica Murphy, she just completed a Trailhead module, which is our learning platform, around App Exchange basics, which is great. But that probably means she's newer to App Exchange. This is the first badge you can get as part of the series. So she's new. That could be a really great idea. So respond, engage with her, or loop her in. Then we've got Phil in the middle. Now Phil is super experienced in the ecosystem. He actually knows way more apps than I do, and he's constantly tweeting about them. In fact, he wrote a book of an ebook with over 100 free apps. So he's a very well-versed customer. The third example is someone who is more of a detractor, somebody who is being negative in the moment. And you know, as a marketer, you don't want to turn away from that person. You can turn a detractor into an advocate. It's very easy by just engaging with them, you know, talking to them in a way that is relatable and honest, and that could be a future customer that you work with. So once you've determined who your customers are and who you want to reach out to, there's a number of different ways to actually work with them. One way is with in-depth interviews. In the example of Tesla here, they have these beautiful videos where you really get to know the customers. I mean, the car is not even the story. It's really about the people that are driving the car. I like to do these interviews for either half hour, an hour, record them, send them to a transcriber, make sure that you have all the information you need to do some great content, whether it's videos, whether it's blog posts, ebooks, in any kind of in-depth stuff. And also by doing these in-depth interviews, you're going to get a lot of content that you can use later. I had mentioned the media briefings for PR. There's going to be quotes and some great materials you can use and really pull out of it. So in-depth interview is one way. Another way is to ask the same question to everybody. So we had done an ebook a while ago called 100 Sales Tips for 2016. So the way that we did that is we asked a number of sales experts for their sales tips. So by asking everybody, what's your best sales tip? You can get tons and tons of those answers, whether it's on social or interviews or various ways. So if you ask 10 people the same question, they may give you 2 or 3 answers, and so that turns into 10, a 10 post listicle or something like that, where you can do a lot more with the content. Another way is with a survey. So I showed you that customer spotlight earlier, and you see another example here. And we actually create these with a get feedback survey, so we don't even have to interview the partner to get these numbers. They complete the survey, and then we're able to develop the creative based on that. Oftentimes, if you have people complete a survey or a form, you can get enough information to use to create content. So you may be asking me, what kind of in-depth interview questions do you tend to use? This is the idea of what we use. And the reason I put this here is to be helpful to you, but also to explain that it's not all about your product. So as you'll see in some of these questions, it's more about the person. So what problems are you trying to solve? What results do you see? How long have you been in this role? What advice do you have? So write out all your questions and think about this different stages of the journey and the funnel, and remembering that it's not all about your product, but it's also good to have some more high-level stuff. The other big aspect is working with your team. So all the creative I showed you today, all of the items we've talked about today is not done in a vacuum. It's not done here in my husband's office with some pinball machines. It is done with a huge team of people that work together. And whether you have 2 people, 10 people, 1 person, you find who you can collaborate with and create great content together. So even if you're a marketing department of 1, think about somebody in other departments you can collaborate with. If you want to talk about customer service in your content, work with a customer service rep or your head of customer service. Find those core people and create a team. The more we can collaborate and work together, the better. And there's some things that I just want you to remember as you take away. First, it's about being customer-centric versus prospect-centric. But even more important than that, when you're thinking about customer marketing, you're thinking about that customer-to-customer message. You're thinking about that peer-to-peer relationship, because customers trust other customers. That's why there are review sites. That's why people read the reviews on Amazon, because they want to know what their colleagues and what other people buying this product have to say before they buy it. So by creating content that's customer-centric for customers by customers, you're more likely to get the attention. Multiple formats. We're never one and done in content marketing with creating just one piece of content. Think about your ebook to your blog post to your podcast, all the different things you can do. What I recommend is you have your vision, then lay out what you want to create and all the different assets you can create from it. And reuse and recycle that interview, all the different pieces you're using, reuse them over and over. As you're doing that, you're going to see that some things work better than others. I always say to fail fast. It's okay to fail. I mean, if a blog post doesn't do well, it basically means nobody saw it, right? So not that big of a deal. but you want to focus on what works. So as you're creating your content engine with all the different pieces, make sure you focus on exactly what's effective. Don't worry about everything, just focus on what works. Don't be afraid. That's a big message I have for everybody. You think about interviewing your customers, creating content that you've never created before. The demo jams, the AppStack webinar, none of those things had ever been done. You just have to go for it. You just have to jump in. Make sure you have a plan, a goal, a reasoning, and your manager's support, but forget fear. Go in head first and try it. You never know what could work. Now, we talked about the garden versus the desert. So remember, when you're creating your content and content marketing, don't just make a lush garden for those prospects. Make it for the customers as well. Get rid of the desert and make that lush garden throughout the entire process. There's this divide in content marketing where a lot of it is focused on leads and not on customers. So we got to divide that with a bridge and think about how we can make everything come together and create content that works for lead driving and works for customer awareness and customer growth. We had our colorful chevron of the 5-step process for the customer content experience. I recommend you do the same. Lay that out when you're doing your planning. Who are your customers? Think about all the different types of fruit out there and capture that low-hanging fruit, but also capture that new piece of fruit or the new customer that hasn't been in the limelight yet. Now, we've done this before where we've highlighted a customer, maybe from a tweet or just someone I met at an event or something like that, and then they wound up being a huge customer for Salesforce. It all starts by just having faith in somebody and bringing that to life. You have to be a detective to find those customers. So make sure in your process you are doing that digging. You're looking and making sure you know exactly who you want and going after it, but being open-minded to the fact that on Twitter and other places there's going to be all different types of customers that would be good to engage with. So do that detective work. I use social media monitoring tool. I recommend that. By using social media monitoring, you can dig in and make sure that you are reaching the right you're reaching the right audience and that you are targeting effectively. For example, there was a forum all about bodybuilders, and they were using GNC products. And GNC didn't know about this, but with social media monitoring, they saw that a lot of conversations about their supplements and their products were happening in these bodybuilder forums. Not Twitter, not Facebook, these core forums. So that's where they went because they did that research. They were detectives. So think about that. Engines are good. Reuse content, build your engine, have your core piece of content in the middle, like that case study or that customer story, and build all the content around it. Again, don't be afraid to reuse the content, recycle it. You work so hard on that ebook. Why would you stop there, right? Make sure you reuse it. Don't be afraid and have fun. So my presentation's a half hour. I'm about at the half-hour mark. I hope that you're excited to do this with me. I'm available for questions, and let's do content.
Okay, Ms. Amanda, that is definitely an informative speech for us on how to build an amazing customer-centric approach to content marketing. So online participants who have any other queries, kindly post your questions on chat, and then if you're anyone is interested to come on live to ask for the question with Ms. Amanda. Here comes the first question, Ms. Amanda. What's your big content marketing challenge?
Oh, that's a great question. When I first came into this role, the big challenge was how do you reach customers with content? I came in as a content marketer. So suddenly, with my role, it was about reaching customers. So really this whole presentation and my whole talk was about so the challenge was, as a content marketer, how do I go from targeting my usual of lead gen and targeting leads to shifting the mindset to target our existing customers and make sure our existing customers get great content the way that I had done on the lead gen side. So that was my initial challenge. And then after that, I think the challenge now is just about how we how we continue to do that and how we continue to challenge ourselves and come up with new and different ways to break the mold. And, you know, this is never boring and this is never done. There's no perfect answer. So I think it's about always kind of challenging yourself in that way.
So Alfred has the second question. What are some common beginner mistakes in content marketing?
Common mistakes in content marketing. Good question. I think like thinking about one and done, you know, like, oh, I launched this ebook, I'm done. But in reality, you have to come up with the entire promotion plan and think about how you're going to get it out there. In fact, launching the asset or assets is just the beginning. You're going to need paid media, you're going to need organic support, social, you're going to need to get it out there to your customers, your partners. So I didn't show it in this presentation, but I actually have a whole approach to that side as well, with social toolkits and different things you can use to get your content out there. So I think that is a huge challenge that people often, you know, they often mistakenly think, oh, I'm done, I launched an ebook, but that's actually just the beginning.
So same person asked for the next question. How would you define quality content for content marketing?
Quality content to me is answering your customers' questions and delivering on their pain points in a clear way. When you get to know your customers and understand their challenges, that's the content that's magical, because that's what they're looking for and you want to solve their problems. When you're creating content just to create it, or for SEO purposes or just to drive traffic to your site, that's where the garbage comes in. So with your vision and being very focused, very tunnel vision on that, you'll make sure that every piece of your content that you do is going to speak to that goal. And when you do that, you're not going to have waste.
So next person asked for the question. Our company wants to bring in more sales leads. How can content marketing help us to do that?
Content marketing originated as a lead gen tactic or strategy. So a lot of the assets I talked about were customer focused, but you can easily turn them outward into more of a lead gen focus by gating them, putting a form in front of it, by targeting your prospects versus targeting customers with the content, and making sure that you have that content engine in place, but it's more of a lead gen focus. You need to establish your goals and what you want to do with that. Content marketing is much more of a top of funnel awareness and form complete type place. It's not going to drive sales. That's not content marketing. That's product marketing. That's, you know, demand gen. That's a different type of marketing. What I'm talking about with content marketing is creating awareness, engagement, and initial
so the same person asked for the next question. What are the best way to build an audience with content?
You know, I think you have to use more than just content to build the audience. You know, if you create all these assets, that doesn't mean that they're going to come read it. You have to learn who your audience is and start reaching out and build that community. You can do it through social, you can do it through events, phone calls, one-on-one conversations, but start to build that audience, get to know who they are, and then talk to them about their challenges and then start creating that content. One other way is to involve them in the content as much as possible. So have them quoted or share their content that they're creating, not yours, share theirs. So the more that you do, more that 80-20 rule of sharing 80% of their content and only 20% of yours, the more you're going to attract their attention. So as you grow that audience, then you can start creating more of your own content. But I think you have to almost ask permission and get your foot in the door.
Okay, so next question comes here, Ms. Amanda. James asks, how do I measure the effectiveness of content marketing?
So you want to establish your goals in your planning stages. There's a lot of different kind of goals and metrics you can associate with content marketing. It all depends on what you're trying to do. I know for us, we focus on traffic to AppExchange and installs of the apps. But then we also look at engagement metrics such as number of social followers and engagements on social, whether that's a retweet, like, quote tweet, comment. So we look at those kinds of numbers and month over month and make sure we track them really regularly so that if we see something dipping or not working, we catch it that month versus, 6 months from now. So establish what your metrics are, come up with your goals. I think you need a benchmark first to determine where you're at. And so what I would recommend is, let's say you're taking on a new blog or a new social channel, look at where it's at. Look at the current situation and set your benchmark and then build on that. You might want to do number of follower growth over the year. You might want to do number of content pieces or amount of content views. There's a number of different metrics you can do, but it all goes back to what your goals are. If you want to engage customers, then you want them to read the assets, you want them to engage with them, you want them to take the next step at your company. For us, it's installing apps. So think about what you want them to do and then work backwards to establish the metrics associated with
Okay,
that.
so here comes the next question. Why are some companies are successful in content marketing while others are not successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that go into being successful and not. I think that ultimately it comes down to creating the quality content that your audience is going to devour, whether they're leads or whether they're customers. I think that the best content marketers are ones that really understand their audience and know them. I could text our customers, like I know a lot of them, the core ones I can talk to anytime. So really knowing your customers and knowing those pain points that they have, their challenges, and then creating great content around it. I think creativity is huge too. We just launched a cookbook, a legitimate cookbook with actual recipes in it. So coming up with creative content ideas like the demo jam, I think that brings innovation to the space. So I think it's knowing your customers, being creative, and then having a great promotion strategy, because again, if you don't get it out there, nobody's going to know it exists. So it's a little bit of being the bigger mouth. And you do that by having some great organic support and great paid support.
Hold on. What is the difference between content marketing and social media?
Okay. Content marketing is actual creation of assets such as blog posts, ebooks, webinars, customer stories, things like that. It's the actual production of content and then marketing that content in a way that is engaging. Social media marketing is using social channels like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or forums and communities to engage, respond, and post. And social and content go hand in hand. So my team is community marketing. We handle both the content marketing and social marketing side. So once the content is created, we use social to get it out there. And if somebody is asking a question on social, we use content to answer that question. So they're very much aligned, but two totally different tactics.
Here's the next question. So can it be used for B2B or B2C brands? That is business to business and business to communication.
Yeah, so I work in B2B. I've been in B2B tech now for about 7 years. So all I do is B2B. So yes, definitely there. And it works for B2C too. I showed the Tesla example with the video. You look at all of the you look at all the YouTube channels and even Facebook Watch and all of the upcoming new platforms for video. There's a lot of B2C out there for that. I think B2C does a great job of staying on top of the latest social and content channels, using Snapchat and other social channels that may be more appropriate to the consumer audience versus the business audience. But there's also a lot of similarities. I mean, we're business people, but we're also consumers, right? So we just wear a different hat. So I think it's about your tone and personality, and always remembering that behind every logo is a customer. And those people should be treated just as you treat any other person, your neighbor, your friend, family. So when you're creating content or you're using social, don't think of them as brands in B2B. Think of them as people, just the way that consumers do.
Okay, so here's the next question. Is content marketing sustainable for the future or worth investing in?
Yeah, I mean, I think content marketing is very sustainable. I don't think that it's going anywhere because you're always going to need resources and assets and material to help your customers and your prospects learn. You know, more than ever, we do research online before doing something. Hardly ever would you walk into a dealership and just buy a car. You often do research online and you're reading materials and you're reading reviews. Same with B2B tech. You're not just going to buy Salesforce out of the blue. You're probably going to do research. You're going to talk to peers. You're going to go online. So content is a huge way to learn. In fact, I had read a study that about 70 or more % of the buying decision is done before they even talk to the salesperson. And that's because they have the assets and the resources with the internet to learn all the information they need so that when they call the salesperson, all the salesperson has to do is push the paperwork and close the deal. And isn't that the ideal situation? So with great content marketing, you can get the insights, information in front of the prospects so that all they have to do is close the deal. The salespeople don't need to sell anything. The customer or the prospect is very well aware, all because of content. The other thing I'll say is that more content has been produced in the last few years than ever. The amount of data out there is huge. So with that said, I mean, we don't see that declining. I do think it's important to focus on what works versus just producing content to produce content. So make sure that when you're creating stuff, it's because it's needed. If there's something that already exists that would help, use that.
Here comes the next question. So what type of content are most effective?
It's hard to answer that question because it depends on the situation. I know for us, we find that our HTML5 flipbooks and our more like, ebook assets have been great, our webinars, our blog posts, and it's all in terms of views and clicks to App Exchange and installs. Those have been effective for us, but it all depends on what your goals are. I think tried and true, you want to drive traffic and grow SEO. Blogging is super important. And when you're blogging, you want that regular cadence. You want to be sure you're blogging, whether it's monthly, daily, weekly, but have that regular cadence going. So that would be one. And then if you want to try a gated asset for lead gen, such as webinars or ebooks, start with, 1 or 2 of those and then build if they're working. So see what works first for you.
Okay, so here comes the next question from Margaret. Where do we get content topic ideas and inspirations?
Oh, good. Okay, where? Yeah, I mean, my biggest inspiration is our customers. So just talking to them, whether I go to, a user group meeting or an event, or I just give them a call. The cookbook that we just launched, that came from a customer. A customer tweeted it. Wouldn't it be cool if Salesforce, created a cookbook? So we did it, because it was a great idea and we were able to tie it to our goals at the time. So talking to your customers, and your customers might come up with the ideas for you. Another reason for the cookbook, and another way that I do research, is using analytics. So I talked about looking at the blog results, looking at social results. There's actually some really cool psychographic data on Twitter that will reveal information like their interests and their likes. So we had seen on Twitter that actually 80% of our Twitter followers were interested in home cooking and grilling. So when the cookbook idea came up, I was like, well, that aligns pretty well. They're interested in tech and cooking. So how can we kind of come up with something that marries those two versus doing yet another, general ebook? So look at the Twitter analytics. You can see that on native Twitter. You just go to analytics, and you can see some really cool stuff there. So use your data, talk to your customers. Also talk to your salespeople. They're going to know what the prospects are saying, and you can listen in on some sales calls and kind of hear the responses of the prospects on the phone. That'll usually give you the pain points. Once you know the pain points, write a blog post about it. Someone might say, what is CRM? Or I don't understand what CRM is. Well, write a blog post. What is CRM? We did that. It's one of the most popular blog posts of all time. If you Google what is CRM, Salesforce usually comes up with the blog post. You'll see it. So answering your customers' questions by uncovering what they are is going to be a huge way to create that effective content.
Okay, so Margaret asked some suggestion like how do I can know which content my audience values them?
Yeah, how do you know what content your customer values? A lot is going to come through in the analytics, but also just ask them. I think having a relationship with your customer is really important to be able to say things like, we just launched this cookbook, or we have this webinar. What do you think of that? Would you come to it? Ask them even before it launches. What do you think of this asset? Also the analytics. So look at your webinar registration versus your attendees. Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it flat? Look at your blog post results and look by blog posts and look by author and kind of get a sense of, what's performing well and what's not. It might be just a matter of adjusting a headline. Maybe they didn't click it because they didn't get the headline or they weren't intrigued. Or it might be that they didn't see it, that you didn't promote it well enough or something like that. So I think a combination of the analytics and and talking to the customers. Another idea too is to work with your team, your employees. It's really important to have your employees share your content. We do a weekly email with click to tweets and making it super simple for our employees to share our content. And you'll get feedback that way too. If they're not sharing it or they don't get it, or the opposite, they love it and they think it's so cool. Those are the kinds of things that you want to hear from employees as well.
Okay, here's one more participant have a doubt. Susmit ask, what are the different tools which can help us in content marketing?
Yeah, I have some of my favorites. I'm not saying this is the answer, but I love Uberflip. It is it does two things. First, you can create a content hub. So if you have content in lots of different places, you can have a landing page that aggregates all that content together, either on your own site or another site. And then they also do the flipbook technology that I talked about, and that is interactive HTML5 flipbooks, which is great for the customer experience of reading the asset, but also on the back end, you get like 30 plus metrics, which you would never get with a PDF. So that is one of my favorites. Another one I love is Canva. Canva enables you to create visual assets really quickly using templates. So we do it for social posts and headers and ebooks. So you can work with your creative team to build the templates out, and then you don't have to even be an artist. I'm not. I can't draw a stick figure, but you can look on social and see all these beautiful assets all created by Canva. So Canva is a great tool too. And then we use Social Studio, which is for social media monitoring, posting, scheduling, and engagement, and analytics. So all of our posting, seeing what's coming in, if somebody says App Exchange, if it doesn't do @App Exchange and they do @ space exchange, all that still comes in. So we're able to really understand who's mentioning us, as well as non-branded mentions, so that we can engage in other kinds of conversations around business apps, for example. So Social Studio is another one. So those are my top tools that I use.
So Ms. Amanda, could you please share your official mail ID so that any other participants, if have any other queries regarding the content-centric approach to content marketing, customer-centric approach, so they can be clarified with you in person. So that will be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, if you guys want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter at Amanda L. Nelson. You can check out the content we create at appexchange.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at appexchange and see all the content there. And I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn in /Amanda Nelson 13.
Okay, participants, just follow Ms. Amanda Nelson in Twitter so that you can be clarified with your doubts in content marketing. So, okay, thank you, Ms. Amanda Nelson, for giving up the nice session in the third day of the conference. That is very much informative for us. So, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great day.